So this isn't to talk anybody out of this, so don't misunderstand what I'm going to say. But first, real strong, bold statement. You step into this industry, you need to understand something. It is the most dangerous sector of hospitality. More people are injured or killed in a short-term rental, an Airbnb, than any other form of hospitality combined. Cruise ships, hotels, bed and breakfast, inns, anything you can stay in that you're paying money for doesn't even come close to how many we have. And it's because the home is the most dangerous place. And more people are injured or killed in a home than anywhere else because that's where we spend the most amount of time. Now you're putting someone in there. So absolutely, you've got to have a checklist in place.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the STR Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Lumpkin, and like we do every Friday, guys, for over 3 years now, we have brought you a guest speaker in the industry that is an expert in what they do. This week is no different. This week, we're going to bring you a guest speaker that is absolutely expert in his space. He's probably one of the best guys to follow on social media, and he's probably one of the only people talking about this topic. And so I think that's really, really important. I was excited to have him on. I'm going to introduce him, guys. You've got the man of the hour. He's always sweet, never sour. Justin Ford with Breezeway. Justin, say hi to everybody.
Hey, that's quite an introduction, Mark. That's really appreciate that. What an honor. And before anybody tunes out, I promise you, I try to make safety interesting. It's usually that boring topic. I appreciate being here today and hopefully can enlighten people on one of the more challenging sides of the industry.
It's not a boring topic if you listen to last week's episode, which is with one of the top STR attorneys in the space.
Oh, yes.
So you'd much rather be talking to Justin and doing this stuff on the front end than talking to Katie on the back end when you've had an emergency or somebody gets hurt. And so I think it's super important. It might get a little bit boring, but we'll keep it going. We'll keep it fun.
There'll be no boring. No boring.
All right. No boring at all.
I actually promise that. If anybody gets to the end of this podcast and says that they had any part that they tuned out, have them call me. I'll pay them back for their time.
I love it. Okay, cool. Unless it's Elon calling in, and then we're not going to pay him back for the hour because I don't know if we can afford that. Give us a background, Justin. How did you get into the short-term rental space? I could not imagine you grew up as a kid saying, I can't wait to, Mommy, Daddy, I either want to be an astronaut or want to be a safety expert for short-term rentals. How did you get here? What's your background?
Yeah, nobody did that. My big thing is I wanted to go to sea, and I did. I was in the U.S. Coast Guard, got my captain's license. And actually, even though the Coast Guard is associated with boating safety and I did boating safety inspections, I hated that part of my job. I was a ship's navigator. So yes, I had that in my background. And then due to something stupid I did, I got recruited by the local fire department. I actually have never shared this publicly before, but I did a brush fire. I had a bunch of brush and construction debris from building a house, and I used some flammable liquid that you're not supposed to necessarily do to get the fire going, and it made a big boom noise that everyone in town heard. Nothing bad happened, no one got hurt, but the fire chief came out and met me, and he said, you know what? You look like a guy who should be on the fire department, and I think you'd be a good firefighter, and you'll learn why what you just did wasn't a good idea. So I actually became a firefighter for 15 years and at the same time started a vacation rental company. Grew to be the largest vacation rental company in the Northeast, one of the top 15 highest grossing at the time when I sold it back around 2017. So yeah, 15 years vacation manager and a strong background in fire safety.
That's awesome, man. Good for you. That's really, really cool. Was there something that got you into the short-term rental game to become a vacation manager? Was there an initial property you bought, somebody approached you? How did you end up as a property manager for that first property?
Yeah, I think everybody who gets into this industry probably gets in the same way that I did. There's a lucrative side of what it is, whether or not it's a friend that's doing it, a family member. My entry was slightly different than a lot of people, but it kind of ended up being the same way, and that is getting out of the Coast Guard. I had an interest in boating and had a boat rental business and actually delivered one of my rental boats to a property, and I was like, hey, nice house, dude. And he's like, Yeah, it's really nice. Too bad we only have it for a week. I'm like, really? You're selling it? And he's like, no, we rented it for a week. I'm like, you could rent a house like that for a week? That's a beautiful house. So that's how I learned about short-term rentals. I knew they were around. Maine actually has where I'm from, has one of the oldest rental markets in the United States. People have been coming up since the 1800s to get out of the hot cities in the summer. So it wasn't that was unusual, but it was definitely opened my eyes from that perspective. So I bought a vacation rental, and it was one of those great investments where when I sold the house, I made 4 times what I bought it for, and in the meantime, covered the mortgage while I was doing it.
That's awesome, man. Good for you. Good for you. And 15 years managing vacation rentals is no joke. Like, if you do it for a year or two, you can probably come out clean, but doing it for that amount of time you're going to see every scenario. You're going to see every bad guest experience. You're going to see every crazy thing, party, stuff that you could have never imagined. And so I would assume that prepped you for as best as you could for the next role, which was, how did you end up with Breezeway and doing that with those guys? How did this
happen? And to just quickly comment on what you said, I mean, I managed 600 vacation rental homes. It was a lot. And there isn't anything I haven't seen, from hot water heaters in the middle of the night, guests locked out, fires, grill explosions, a turkey flying through a window during a bridal shower and smashing glass all over guests, mass casualty. I saw it all, and it's a hard business. I said, you know what? I don't know if I can do this more than 10 years, and I definitely pushed it when I did. Yeah, actually, one of my summer interns got a job with Breezeway when it was first getting started in 2017, and it was right around where I knew I had to exit as a property manager because I was burned out. It's a lot. It is a lot. When you get up at 4 a.m. and you're just staring at your phone waiting for that checkout and know you got to go get trash, reschedule, 4 cleaners calling out, oh my God, I got to go clean these houses on my own, and you're hearing the disasters just building all day. 10 years of that is a lot. So she knew that I was leaning really hard on the safety side and introduced me to the CEO of Breezeway. I was one of the first employees there now and have been there now for 7 years. Incredible company, and just so honored to be a part of the growth of what is really the leader now globally in short-term rentals operations, helping you, once you get those bookings, manage them.
Yeah. You hit a turkey through a window. That might be a story for another time, man. Was it a frozen turkey?
It was a live turkey.
It was alive. Oh my goodness.
Yes, I have pictures of me holding the turkey. I'll send you one.
That is insane, man. We might use it for the thumbnail on this episode. But I mean, my wife manages a few of our properties and some close friends and family and stuff like that. On Sunday, I was trying to relax, and she's like, I got a cleaner that called out. I got this problem. This house needs restocked. Da 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 da. And just like everything in me wanted to be like, just sell everything. Get rid of all these houses. We don't need this kind of headache, because it's a lot, man. And I think that is obviously one of the most understated things in the short-term rental industry, because STRs are attached to real estate. And there's such this aura around real estate that it's passive income. And for all the great things that the Bigger Pockets guys did for the people to invest, they created this illusion that owning real estate is passive income, and it's not work, and it doesn't take time, and it doesn't have broken toilets. And it's, in my opinion, especially in short-term rentals, the exact opposite. It's like, dude, you buy one house, you just got yourself a second job. You buy 3 houses, you might just got yourself another 2 or 3 jobs. And so can you touch on like exactly what you guys do over at Breezeway and how you guys have led the industry, and then we'll dive into all the safety stuff.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is I'll kind of give you a spiel about Breezeway that you won't hear from our marketing department, and it's not because our marketing department doesn't do a good job. They do an amazing job. But Breezeway is selling itself as a software that helps you after you get the booking. And now you've got to assign the cleaning task to your cleaner and make sure it gets cleaned. You've got to assign the maintenance task within the software to make sure that, filters are getting changed, and that, if there's a repair for a dryer that needs to be fixed, that those work orders are all getting complete. So that's everything that Breezeway's doing. Guest messaging, helping you keep inventory. How many rolls of toilet paper do we have left in the house? We got to get somebody to Sam's Club or Costco to buy more and get it in there. So all that type of stuff is going on. But it's the task management side and the record keeping of the software that to me really shines through. And you alluded to, you had Katie Johnson on your last episode. She's amazing. On the legal side of what we do, record keeping is critically important. The number one side or growth in the law or legal industry, litigious side of the United States right now is obviously short-term rentals, and it's for a reason. And if you don't have records of what you're doing and when you've done it, we've changed the smoke alarm 6 months ago. We updated and repaired the pool gate a week ago. Here's the records that show that. We secured those handrails. We changed those light bulbs. The guests couldn't have tripped and fallen going into the property because here's the records. That's what Breezeway is to me, is it's a record-keeping vault that is going to help protect you if some incident ever came to show that even if it did happen, it wasn't an accident. It was something that happened because it just was that right time in the world. You're not a negligent operator if you've got records and you're keeping track of everything that's been done at your property.
I love that. I think that's really cool. And I think it's, like you said, an understated benefit to Breezeway that many people probably don't think about. And that record keeping, for a lot of the investors that are buying a property, they're keeping records of the amount of time that they spend at the home so they can get their material participation. The records of taxes being paid that we've talked about, and bed tax, and just all the stuff. However, they're likely not keeping records of what you just talked about, Justin, which is when were the light bulbs changed? When was that air filter cleaned? When was that door lock batteries changed? When did we change the propane tank? When did we service the fire extinguisher? Because that's got to be done every so often. So I think that's a pretty understated benefit to you guys. Can we dive into let's just rip the Band-Aid off, man. Let's just start talking about the things that we need to be thinking about. I'm listening in. I'm a first-time investor. I said, it's great. Thank you, guys. I'll check out Breezeway. I'm buying my first short-term rental. What do I need to know? Like, I know that I need a fire extinguisher by the barbecue, and I know that I need to have smoke detectors in the house. But what else do I not know about? Because you're running, in my opinion, you're running a hotel. This is not a traditional piece of real estate. This is a hotel, is a hospitality. So just start the list off, man. What do we need to talk about?
Yeah, and so first and foremost, I love this industry. I'm looking to buy another short-term rental myself. So this isn't to talk anybody out of this, so don't misunderstand what I'm going to say. But first, real strong, bold statement. You step into this industry, you need to understand something. It is the most dangerous sector of hospitality. More people are injured or killed in a short-term rental, an Airbnb, than any other form of hospitality combined. Cruise ships, hotels, bed and breakfasts, inns, anything you can stay in that you're paying money for doesn't even come close to how many we have. And it's because the home is the most dangerous place. And more people are injured or killed in a home than anywhere else because that's where we spend the most amount of time. Now you're putting someone in there. So absolutely, you've got to have a checklist in place. I don't care if your local fire department gives you a list and it's only got 2 or 3 things on it. I got 77 things on there and I'm going easy. So smoke alarms are the single most important item in a property. You need to know them. You got to take the time. I got a 20-minute video that tells you about it, but you have to become an expert on them before you step foot into investing in or owning a short-term rental. You need to understand everything. You need to know what ionization means. You need to know what photoelectric means. You can learn that in under an hour, but you need to know it.
In every room? Every bedroom, every hallway space. I mean, I would assume the average house needs a dozen.
Yeah, I mean, I just built. I'm sitting here in our cabin in Maine. It's a 2-bedroom cabin. I've got 12 smoke alarms and heat detectors in here. I have a heat detector in my bathroom because you can't put a smoke alarm in a bathroom because the humidity will set it off. So I have a heat alarm in there because my laundry's in there. And dryers are the number 3 appliance to cause a fire in a home, especially in a short-term rental. Short-term rentals, by the way, you have so much more dust coming in. I just gave someone some advice because they just bought a new short-term rental and they were talking about how they're doing all the towels and washing all the new towels. New towels put out 3 times as much lint as a regular towel. All that lint's building up. It creates a fire hazard in your dryer. So yeah, I've got smoke alarms, heat detectors, carbon monoxide alarms. I have flame detectors, which are relatively new for residential applications in my properties. I've got these movement devices. There's a lot of tech that's out there that you've got to install in your property so you know everything that's going on.
That's crazy, man. The statement, that's a bold statement earlier, that, and I believe you that you have the facts, but that's crazy to think about. More people die in short-term rentals than any other hospitality sector, right? We see the Netflix specials about the cruise ships and people getting kidnapped and whatever. We see the hotel in Thailand that gets hit by a hurricane and collapses, and like you see that on mainstream media, but you do not see the kid that drowned in the swimming pool in the back of the Airbnb. Obviously, they make the news, but they're not the headlines, and they're not. And I've got two little kids, and so when we moved to Florida, we had decided we were around pools all the time, and me and my wife were like, these kids are learning how to swim, and so we got a swim instructor. We're going twice a week. It's a non-negotiable. You're going to learn how to swim, and we're going to keep a close eye on you. But that's the number one cause of death in Florida, aside from disease. Accident-caused death for children under 12 is drowning. And so I'd love to do the next segment where we just walk through rooms of the house. And I think a good transition. Let's start with the pool, man. Let's talk about pool safety. What can we do to keep those pools as safe as possible?
I'm glad you brought it up because you're absolutely right. I mean, there's 46 at STRs in Florida this year. There's more pool drownings than that in Florida, but 46 at STRs. And I can see this stuff. The reason we don't see about it in the news as much, we do see a lot. There's definitely a negative portrayal of our industry. Most of them are around the shootings from parties, from what I call bad operators. You know who they are. Somebody who lives far away, they rent their property, and these teens come in and they have parties or shootings. That's every night in America there's a shooting at a short-term rental. That's horrible. But that aside, pool drownings are the number one cause of death, safety related at a short-term rental. Most of it is because we don't take enough time to recognize that the people who are coming to stay in your property, number one, have vacation brain. They're not there to watch their kids. They're there to chill out. Number two, they don't own a pool at home. That's why they rented your house with a pool, so they're not experienced around them. And then number three, they're annoyed by the safety devices that are in place for the properties. And number one is the pool alarms. Everyone hates a pool alarm. They quickly disable them. We don't have good pool alarms in our industry. And number two, they can't stand the gates, so they prop them open. They use bricks, rocks, bungee cords, and they prop them open. So now little Johnny, little Susie, who gets up at 6 a.m. on that first morning and is so excited to go use the pool. Mom and dad are passed out from drinking too much wine last night. They've just gained access to the pool. So most of the pool drownings we see are kids getting access to the pool when they shouldn't.
And would you say most of those operators are hitting those things where they have a fence and they have an alarm?
Yeah, the fences don't work. The pool gates don't work. I just looked at a pool drowning that just happened in Florida. You can go on Google Earth and actually look 3 months ago at this property. There's a golf cart there that the renters use. The pool gate's wide open. You can see it from the Google Earth car driving by. And I knew right away. Kid, sure enough, it was a neighbor's kid who came and drowned at the pool because the gate's wide open. And they have to self-close. You should be following what California and Florida have the strictest rules when it comes to pools. A lot of them, unfortunately, are grandfathered if the house was built before. Forget all that. You've got to set up your pool to exactly the way Florida requires it, whether you're in Minnesota, Maine, or Oregon, because they do have the best requirements when it comes to it. Window heights, when they have to have pool alarms, pool gates and latches, self-latching, self-closing, signage on the two cheapest things that you can do is have a sign on every pool gate and every door leading to a pool reminding the guests to keep those secure at all times. And number two is having a water watcher program in place. They're free. You can get them from the U.S. government. I have a lot of hosts and operators tell me they're making their own now. For 3 seconds, you can get in the head of your guests when they check in and they see this water watcher card sitting on the kitchen counter and they're like, what is this for? It is so that whoever's in charge of watching the pool is wearing that cord around their neck or around their, as a wrist bracelet that says, I'm in charge of watching the pool. I'm not drinking alcohol. I'm not sleeping. I'm not going to the bathroom. And if I am, I'm passing this card off to someone else to watch the pool.
Have you guys had operators implement that?
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of operators are doing that. A lot of professional operators are doing it. A lot of hosts that are doing that around the country, well into the thousands. And it's so nice. I just was in Portland, Oregon, and that's not a place where you think of swimming pools. I went in to see an operator invited me. She was a real estate broker. I show up at her property and there's a water watcher card right on the counter. She's custom made it. It's got a whistle on it, all this stuff. And she said all of her guests are mentioning it because they hadn't seen it before. And they're like, thank you for putting that in there. It helped me talk to the kids and say, hey, we got to be safe while we're here.
Interesting. Obviously, great recommendations. You are still potentially at the mercy of your guests and them following those rules. I agree. I think signage is huge. I think signage throughout the property everywhere. Like what, even down to the most simple hospitality things. What's the Wi-Fi code? Like I should walk into your house and the Wi-Fi should be on a nice little plaque sitting on the fridge so that I can just log into the Wi-Fi, right?
But you got to be careful with your signage. You got to be careful.
Okay, talk us through signage. Let's talk through signage. That's when we pull on this thread.
Yeah, I like that. And, the important thing about signage is you have to remember once you put something on a sign, you're saying this is important. And if you put things that aren't important on a sign, you take away from the importance of one that is. There was a case, I talk about it in my safety course that we offer for everyone at Breezeway. And there's a case where, unfortunately, a woman had a miscarriage, and it was linked back to potentially her exposure in a hot tub at an Airbnb, and she had no idea. I'm not pregnant. I can never get pregnant, either can you, Mark, but I think both of us probably know you shouldn't get in a hot tub if you're pregnant. This young lady,
that's definitely one of the rules. Don't get in the hot tub, don't drink. But
she said she didn't know, but there was no sign there. And these attorneys are so thrifty. They're like, you had a sign saying where to park, no noise after 10, and take off your shoes, but you didn't have a sign that said, and the attorney's absolutely right. As soon as you're saying take off your shoes and no noise after 10, and then you have another sign saying make sure the pool gate's always closed, well, I'm not going to jail if I don't take off my shoes, and I'm certainly not going to jail if I make a little noise after 10. So really, is it that important that I close the gate? So I like to limit and make sure the signage is focused on that. Stop putting up those big signs of you must put out the trash. It's Saturday at 2 or you'll be charged. And then you have a little teeny fine print, don't use any candles in our property. It's like, what?
So prioritize the safety first on your signage. I agree that it's that funny old VRBO commercial. VRBO's got all kinds of problems, but they did it might have been Airbnb. It might have been VRBO or Airbnb, but someone did with the Alabama coach, the head coach of Alabama, where he was at the property with them. And it was VRBO. It was like, it was their campaign that said, we don't have hosts. And he was just following him around. He's like, you've been in the shower for 3 minutes. It's time to get out. And he's like, take off your shoes. You can only go to these 3 channels. And so I have seen that where hosts have tried to not coach, but they're trying to control the entire stay, and they're trying to tell the guest what to do at every moment of the stay, instead of focusing on, hey, we gotta cover our ass here. Let's make sure that we're hitting all the safety points, and then if they wear their shoes in the house, so be it. We're gonna mop the house anyways. Who cares?
I feel my role in this industry is to be here to turn perception into reality and reality into perception. I see so many hosts that think that, like, even follow me, and they'll invite me to their property, and they have done 5 or 6 things. Like we've put all, remove the spiral staircase. I'm like, I don't care about a spiral staircase. We haven't seen any incidents around spiral staircases. People are more careful around them. We got rid of the gas grill and put in gas range in the kitchen and put in an electric one. I'm like, why did you do that? There's actually less incidents with a gas stove than there is with an electric stove. So I think it's really important that before you start putting signs in, before you start putting all these rules in place, don't go off what your perception of what something is that's going to be bad. Go off of the reality, and the reality is someone is going to trip and fall entering your property in the first hour. That's when we see the most claims through the insurance companies. It's that arrival time period, and here you've done all this work in your backyard to make sure that there's a fence and they don't fall into a pond. I haven't seen any of those lately, but I'm seeing everybody trip and fall over that crazy walkway you just put in.
Okay, so prioritize things. Exactly. It's interesting because we've got a property that we manage, and the owner was complaining that we were leaving on the porch light, even on nights where people aren't checking in. And we're like, that porch light is going to stay on 365 days a year. And it's because someone could book this house at 9:30 at night and show up 15 minutes later. And I am not driving across town to turn that porch light on. And they're going to have a porch light on because I've been the guest. I honestly wasn't even really thinking about safety. I was thinking more about convenience and being the guest. I mean, like, I showed up with 2 kids. They're tired. I'm trying to find the door handle. I got 3 bags. But then when you look at it from the safety perspective, there's a little lip when you come in the door and someone's not paying attention, they're tired, they fall, trip, land on their face, break their wrist, shatter an elbow. That stuff happens. So
constantly. By the way, I'm going to help you automate that, because there are automation tools through Breezeway that you know what time the check-in is, and we can turn the lights on for you. But what I will tell you is exactly that. Slip, trips, and falls are the number one cause of injury in a short-term rental. 83%, according to insurance companies, of claims. Not fire. Fire's 3%. It's usually pretty bad, but it's slips, trips, and falls, and most of it is over poor lighting, walkways. Most people don't realize it only takes the thickness of a nickel to create a trip hazard. I was just in Palm Springs, California, and I'm walking down the main street, and the sidewalks, there's orange fluorescent spray paint highlighting trip hazards that the city's put down that they want to get fixed, but they know that it's a huge challenge they have to do. And I go to these houses, operators of like these, you're like doing a lobster crate race where you got to jump from step to step and hope you don't step in the gravel in between. And there's no lighting. I'm like, yeah, I hope you have a really good attorney, because your insurance is not covering you on this. It's just going to come down to how much of a claim you're going to pay out.
Are you seeing, and we might not have the numbers on this, but are you guys seeing demographics that are higher risk? Like, obviously, we know that little kids are going to be much higher risk of drowning in swimming pools. Families traveling with little kids are going to be high risk. Are we seeing that the trip and slip and fall is higher risk with the older generation, with different type of property? Is there anything around that?
There is. Unfortunately, insurance companies won't share that data. I'm able to get a lot of claims data that the general public can't see. I can't get into specifics on it under NDAs I have. But unfortunately, age-wise, it's difficult. We can only refer over to what we know are typical home injuries. The National Safety Council puts out data, and it really is across the board what different types of things. You could sit there and go, okay, we do know Air DNA has done a fantastic job. My good friend Jamie Lane over there, amazing economist, they've done a good job of showing us, 13, 14% of people are over the age of 60. Well, we know as people age that they certainly do that. You have to assume there's someone over the age of 60 in every 2 or 3 rentals that you're going to have at your property, and they're much more likely to trip and fall. So we need to address that. Just like you have to know that 25, 26% of your guests are going to be under the age of 12, and they don't wake up the smoke alarms. Kids 2 to 12 don't wake up the smoke alarms. So you've got to think about making sure you've got better smoke alarms, maybe the ones with the strobe lights in the kids' room. So there's all these different things you can balance out with age and demographics, but generally speaking, you should assume there's an old person, a young person, and a drunk person, which is, by the way, everybody in the middle in every single group staying in your property.
Okay, interesting. Let's move into the house. We started on the outside. We talked about the pools. We talked about entering the home and some things you can do to limit and mitigate that. Let's talk about the kitchen. Like, I walk into the kitchen and my initial mind is like, I got little kids. That's the biggest hazard. We got a stove, we got knives, we're cooking, we got heat. But that might not be I'm assuming it's not. I'm assuming the pool is. But how do we keep our kitchen safe? Are there some tools, resources? What can we do in that area of the house?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. The kitchen's the most dangerous place in a short-term rental. It's where we see the most incidents. There's so many different things that happen. Going back quickly to smoke alarms, we see all the time. I walk into properties all the time and say, okay, this is the most likely. 34% of fires are going to start here. That's the largest percentage. Where's the nearest smoke alarm? And people just stare and look around, and we finally realize that there isn't one nearby. You can't have one.
It's in the bedroom. It's in the closest bedroom, probably.
It's in some hallway down around there. I'm like, so the smoke, by the time it finally gets, so really big challenge there. Then we also get into poisons. And number one phone call placed from a short-term rental, according to a Washington Post investigative article a few years ago, is to poison control. Now, some of it's from drugs that are left behind by previous guests, getting the cushions, falling on the floor. But it's also exposure to chemicals. You might come from a home where you use Tide, and it's Tide liquid. And now your kids are exposed for the very first time to the gel packs. And the gel packs look like candy. And so, wow, what's that doing there? And why is there a need for some bar top polishing chemical that doesn't have a child-safe lid on it, and it's the only chemical under the sink, and the little kid thinks that's what they can use to wipe up a mess before mommy sees they did it. So chemical control and management's extremely important. But here's a surprising one that a lot of people don't know about. And we did a study a few years ago where we looked in some markets where, generally speaking, there's a higher percentage of short-term renters in the summer. Outer Banks was one of them. They have a hospital in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And we could see there's a lot of calls for lacerations. And so what we believe is happening, and we see it a lot in guest reviews, our guests are getting injured from dull knives. And Mark, if you've ever used a dull knife to cut a tomato, it doesn't go straight through the tomato, it goes off to the side. And so while we don't see a lot of insurance claims around it, because I think a lot of people go, I was an idiot, we do see a lot of talk in reviews and discussions about dull knives. And so I give a recommendation that if you can't get in there and have a professional sharpening those knives, don't give them that knife sharpening rod. They're not going to use it. But they do make knife blocks that at least help, that every time the knife is going in and out, it sharpens. They're like $150. Those should be in your property. But recognize there's some crazy stuff that is happening in the kitchen that's leading to these guest injuries. And you're leaving them with a bad memory. Remember when we stayed there? Yeah, Tom cut his finger really bad because of dull knives, yeah.
Yeah, that it goes hand in hand. And what's interesting about this conversation is I'm starting to learn, and we've only been in this for 30 minutes. I came into the conversation with the preconceived notion that safety would typically lead to lower guest satisfaction, and that the things you needed to do in order to make the home safe would create a worse experience. And the more we're talking, the more I'm realizing that they actually are starting to go hand in hand, and maybe go way more hand in hand than I realized just yet. Because I'm thinking about the guest experience of cooking a meal. I'm a chef. I don't want to cook with dull knives. And I didn't, I knew that they were less safe than sharp knives, but I want to be able to make a nice meal for my family quickly and efficiently. And I'd like to use nice, sharp knives to do that. And it's a safety feature. I'd like to enjoy drinking by the pool and and if I knew that my wife was on pool duty, I would be able to enjoy myself more. And so actually they start to kind of go hand in hand. But let's keep going on the kitchen though.
Yeah, I mean, even into hand mixers, I'm in Maine, as I said, and it's blueberry season. This is our wild Maine blueberries, which is our number one crop after lobsters are out. So everyone's making blueberry pie. I made some blueberry cake for my wife this past weekend, and you got to use a hand mixer, and you got to have a quality one because they get used a lot because people are baking a lot. We've actually seen incidents where people are lifting the hand mixer up like they would their one at home, and the beaters spin out because they get worn out. We actually saw a bridesmaid in Nashville lose her eye. They're making cookies because it spun out. So all the appliances in the property have to be inspected, every single one of them. There was a fire at a short-term rental in Colorado recently that was from one of those cookers, the slow cooker. The slow cooker kept tripping breakers. They didn't know that was happening, and it caused the short-term rental to burn down. So every appliance you have to assume is going to get used 20 times more than in your own home. My house, it's when I'm making blueberry cake in the summer. I might use it again to make some cookies in October, maybe at Christmas. I use those egg beaters 4 times a year. In a short-term rental, it's going to be 4 times a week. So you got to check and maintain all of the different appliances that are in the property much more thoroughly than you would in your own home.
And things just need to be replaced. At the end of the day, stuff gets worn out and it just needs to be replaced. And so that's something we always talk about, where this is not a set it and forget it business. You're not going to spend $100,000 to set up your house and then never have to reinvest in that property. You're going to have to buy new towels and linens in 6 months, and you're going to have to go replace this in a year, and you're going to need new pots and pans, and you just have to do that. And so if people aren't underwriting and they aren't budgeting to replace things, stuff gets worn down, it becomes unsafe. How do we prevent fires in kitchens? I know I've seen those little bombs that go above the stove where if it catches on fire, it explodes and puts the fire out. Have you guys had any experience with those? What do you guys recommend to limit those fires in the kitchens?
Yeah, this is a tough subject because I see a lot of great new products. Someone just shared with me the other day this amazing product that's a CO2 charger that won't make a mess in the kitchen, and it'll put the fire out, and you're not dealing with all this cleanup of residue from a fire extinguisher afterwards. I have hosts and operators all the time reaching out to me, showing me pictures. They put fire blankets in. Reality is this: there's only one tool that you can put in your property that you should be putting in your property, and that's fire extinguishers. Everyone wants to work around them because they think they're ugly. They're the only thing in code. The only thing in code. So there's no mention in U.S. building codes of fire blankets. They're a European tool that's generally started to make its way, But the problem with them is you have to put on gloves. And most people don't supply the gloves. And in our American education system, no training is done throughout any grade schools or any schools anywhere to train Americans how to use a fire blanket. So you don't want them learning that first time in your short-term rental how to use that fire blanket. You want them going right to the fire extinguisher. That's the way our system is set up. And it should be within, it's actually code, all 50 states, that you are required to have a fire extinguisher within 30 feet of any cooking appliance. That's your grill, it's your stove, it's a microwave, it's a toaster, and I definitely recommend that you're doing that and having it out in the open. I hear of saves every
You're mounting it,
day.
you're putting it on the wall right next to the stove.
It's got to be out there. Yep.
Because
It's
if you've got to
ugly.
dig through a closet or a pantry to find it in panic mode in a home you're unfamiliar with, it's going to be almost impossible to do so.
Yep, has to be out in the open. You'll get used to it. There's a house in Chincoteague, Virginia. The homeowner said I can stay there for life because they listened to me on a podcast like this, installed it. A week later, a guest used it, and it saved their property. It was a $1.6 million property. It saved 20 guest lives, and it works. Fire extinguisher is the way you got to go, and you might have to do some cleanup afterwards, but it's a whole lot better than renovations.
Whole lot better than renovations.
And stop putting it under the kitchen sink. That drives me nuts.
Don't put it under the kitchen sink.
It's pretty. Let me move the Cascade and get the Clorox out of the way. Hang on a minute, fire.
Yep, I hear you. When we're looking at fire extinguishers, what about size? Is there certain sizes that are required for certain sizes of property? Walk me through that.
I'm glad you asked that. That's one I don't get asked very often, and it's a very important one. The number one thing that people have said in surveys after their experience using a fire extinguisher, number one, is I wish I had more. Stop giving that little aerosol spray can that looks like hairspray from Home Depot, or the guy you saw on Facebook, Prepared Zero or whatever it is, a little aerosol can. No, 5 pounds. 5 pounds. You've got to have the nice big ones. It's a tool you're giving the guest to save your property. Think about that. They're going to save your house if you give them a little can and they can't put it out. Now we're waiting 10 minutes for the fire department.
Get a 5-pound one. I love that. Should you have multiple? If you got multiple cooking areas, you've got an outdoor kitchen, an indoor kitchen, you've got a kitchenette in the ADU that grandma and grandpa are staying in. You need one in every one of those cooking spaces?
Absolutely. And fire extinguishers can be stored at temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius, above 120 degrees. So you'll see them outside. Again, I travel around a lot and see safety all over. When I'm in Hawaii, I was in Maui recently, every single short-term rental has the fire extinguisher mounted outside in the Hawaiian hot sun. They make covers for them so that, it doesn't degrade as long in the sun or the water. They're on Amazon. They're like $6 or $7, so you can put a cover on it. But don't be afraid to put it outside by the grill. Don't be afraid to put it in your garage, wherever you can put it, because the other big one, and I hope we can talk about it briefly, is lithium batteries now. And so you've got to be thinking about that. That's a hot new thing that's happening that everybody's going to be aware of.
Crazy. Let's talk about lithium batteries. What are they doing?
So many. New York City has seen more lithium battery fires this summer than ever. They had 13 calls the other day, all lithium battery related. There was an incident that just happened on Alaskan Airlines. Person's got their cell phone. I don't know if a lot of people know this, by the way. The reason when you get on an airline that they want your laptops stowed up above is because there's been so many fires with them that if your laptop catches on fire during takeoff and landing, it's so that the hostesses on the flight attendants, can manage that fire better than a laptop flying around the plane on flames. They are catching on fire, and in short-term rentals, we're seeing so many more, because what's the one thing, Mark, you forget and I forget when we travel with our electronics?
Our chargers?
Our chargers! So then they're going to 7-Eleven and buying off-brand ones, stuff coming in from some far-off land that's not designed for it. They're cheap, and then they're catching them on fire because they don't turn off and they continue to charge, overheat the batteries. We've seen e-bike fires when you travel with your bike, which you may normally use at home. Now it's banging on the bike rack for 6 hours and it's slightly damaged. Charging issues leading to fire. Boot heaters. The kids bought a drone with them. All these different lithium battery products that are now coming into your short-term rentals, and we're seeing a tremendous number of fires related to it, and it's all because People aren't set up for it. And you've got to understand where and how these things are happening to prepare your guests for it.
It's crazy. I want to be cognizant of time because I'm like, we could keep going room by room by room, but we are running short on time, and I want to be respectful of your time and our listeners too. I'd love to dive into one more element, and then we'll talk about the future of short-term rentals. But I'd like to talk about the construction element, and this is self-serving, which is where it often is a hot topic. I post something on this on LinkedIn. You jump on, everyone jumps on. We get 100,000 impressions, and it's a hot topic. But when we look at properties as a licensed general contractor, we are looking through the lens of permitting and safety as well. And so I look at an inspection report of a bathroom that doesn't have GCFI outlets, and I always recommend to the owner, those need to be updated. I look at a deck that is not engineered to hold the weight of a hot tub, and I say that hot tub needs to be removed, the deck needs to be rebuilt, needs to be engineered, we need to pull a permit, we need to have an electrician bring a 220 outlet, blah, 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 blah. There are a lot of people in the space not doing that. And so what are some of your call outs from a construction renovation standpoint? We know we can put fire extinguishers in and da-da-da, but what are some things that you've seen where you're looking at this and going, no, this is a disaster? I think you posted the other day about a handrail. It's like handrail's 36 inches, good to go, 42 on commercial, blah, 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 great. But what are the things you see in a lot of these homes that from a structural standpoint are giving you concerns?
Yeah, it's a great topic, and it's on my list. I've done a real estate buying guide safety for things to consider, such as is the driveway wide enough for a fire truck to get up it before you buy it. But from a construction point, this is a topic I've really wanted to dive into for a while. There are so many different things when it comes to the decks. And I love that you brought up decks. Decks are where we see a lot of issues post-construction and people buying and rehabbing. You got to remember, there's no such thing as grandfathering when it comes to safety. And that's probably the biggest one that I see. They bought a house built in 1972. Now they're converting it over to STR. Well, I'm grandfathered on this. Yeah, you might be grandfathered because you're telling them it's a residential home. You're not telling them, and the city actually doesn't have a category for construction. Short-term rentals are not in building code. I'm on committees where they're trying to put that in. Trust me, it's coming. That's an advantage, by the way, for investments. You've got to go above and beyond because code isn't always going to cover you when it comes to grandfathering. And if your deck is supposed to be built by code to hold 50 pounds per square foot, you need to make it hold 80. And you've got to use materials that are going to last better and longer. And if you want to not have the fire extinguisher stand out and be ugly, construction's a great time to do an in-wall cabinet, just like what you see in a commercial application. Construction's a great time. PEX tubing has become so inexpensive now for sprinkler systems. We're very close now. You're seeing it in Maryland, for example, where you have to have a sprinkler system. Sevier County, a lot of people like to invest over there in the Smoky Mountains. The big houses now have to have fire sprinklers. If I was buying a short-term rental, that's a huge investment I would make because it's going in that direction where you got to have sprinkler systems. So there's a lot of opportunities during construction and a lot of things to pay attention to.
Yeah, for sure. And it's an initial investment in the property. It's going to cost you some more money. But if you underwrite for it, it's probably going to save you money in the long term. And so it's been, yeah, man, what a riveting conversation. We could do this again. We definitely should do this again, man. But I would love to get...
We didn't even get started yet. I know we're already in.
I know, dude. We can make this podcast episode 2 or 3 hours. We could do Joe Rogan style. But people listen to it would be like, Mark, every episode's 30 minutes. What do you mean you guys just ripped for 3 hours? It's just, we're just scratching the surface, man. And so I'd love to dive into just your thoughts on the future of the short-term rental industry. And then we'll leave everyone with your social media, how they can find you, how they can follow you, all your resources and stuff like that. We'll definitely have you back on, Justin. But what are your thoughts around just the future? Where do we go from here? We've obviously seen the evolution of short-term rentals go from mom and pop. You're driving up into the middle of Maine and you pull off on the side of the road. There's a little cabin to rent and the lady lives there and she hands you the key and checks you in, checks you out, to the evolution of Airbnb and renting rooms from people. And now we're getting into these kind of like almost like super properties are the industry. Like there's not much shared spaces anymore. The regular houses are going by the wayside. This is really, in my opinion, turning into an industry that's going to be mostly super properties. But what are your thoughts on the future and where we go from here?
Yeah, I think people are getting a lot more extreme. At the same time, we're seeing mixed signals from government. I don't think a lot of people understand that codes are mandated by the state, and some states choose NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, for their building codes, and then very similar are international residential codes. And so when it comes to the safety of a short-term rental, the state or the local government says we have to follow code, but short-term rentals aren't in code. The only thing that comes close is a few fire things. And so I run into operators all the time. I was just out in Vail, Colorado. Hey, the local fire department inspects our rental. We're safe. I'm like, no, you're not. They inspect to make sure you have a smoke alarm, that you have a carbon monoxide alarm, and that you've got some egress. That's 3% of incidents. They didn't point out that that tree could fall on your house. That's a trip hazard, and that electrical wiring's not to code because they don't have that authority. And so we have a really big problem with that, and the industry is starting to recognize that. So I think a lot of the future we're going to see is you're going to be surprised, just like it's happened in cities like Scottsdale, Arizona, or Sedona, Arizona, where in 3 months, all of a sudden, all these regulations are put in place. You weren't prepared for it. You should be setting your short-term rental up from an investment mindset to exceed not only your local codes, but the direction that this industry is going in when it comes to safety. Because when you turn around and want to liquidate that asset at some point in time and generate revenue, you're going to stand out of the cream on top when you're like, yeah, we have a brand new sprinkler system in here. Every bedroom window meets egress, best smoke alarms out there. Invest in that stuff. It's such a small amount. I just showed an operator the other day. 1 year's income on one bedroom will cover all the safety things that they need for the next 10 years on the property, plus the appreciation they're going to get. So that's where the direction we're going in is. You're going to see more and more safety requirements coming down the pike. So be prepared for it.
Be prepared for it, for sure. Yeah, we're seeing it, like you said, real time in certain municipalities. Scottsdale right now is on short-term rentals. They're not grandfathering in anything. And if we pull a permit to go do a bedroom addition, when they walk that property, they're looking at everything. Nope, that window doesn't meet today's code. Nope, that doesn't meet today's code. And in order to issue that permit for the update, they want everything up to code. Handrails are too short. And so we're preparing our clients by saying, hey guys, in order to do this correctly, you need to budget an extra 20 grand because this house is missing this, it's missing that, this is not up to code. And I think the problem is the industry is still so mom and pop oriented, and it's a lot of times very budget conscious people. That doesn't mean they're bad people. They're just very budget conscious, and they're like, oh, we can do this for ourselves for a few $100s instead of spending a few $1,000s to do it the correct way. The problem is that's not going to fly for much longer, and in a lot of places it's not flying. And so there's a county in Florida we do a lot of work in. They sent a whole lot of people 30 days, get it right, or we're coming in and shutting you down. And I mean, literally for 30 days, my phone was just exploding with people saying, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, okay, it costs you 40 grand to permit this garage into a bedroom. Oh, I don't have the money. Okay, then lock the door and you don't have a 4-bedroom anymore. You have a 3-bedroom because that's not a legal bedroom. And like, what do you mean? It's like, well, they require the floors to be level. We have to bring in 3 inches of concrete all across the floors. They require engineering to put HVAC in this room and heating and cooling. They require daylight. They require egress. They require outlets. There's so many requirements. You can't just slap a mini split in a barn and say, this is a bedroom, I'm going to sleep 6 people. That's not going to fly for much longer, and a lot of places not flying anymore.
It's, you know, if you could put the mind blow emoji on me, on my head, the one that always gets me is the word you said, egress. I want to say that probably, and this is a professional guess, this isn't a fact, I want to say that probably 40% of short-term rentals in the United States have at least one illegal egress point in them, and most operators don't even know what egress is. I just was in an A-frame with somebody. I'm like, this isn't legal, you need to shut down. And they're like, what are you talking about? We just passed the local fire inspection. I'm like, what did they check? She said, well, that I had smoke alarms and fire extinguishers, and that's it. I'm like, yep, that's typical, but you've blocked the only way to get out in a fire. Well, they didn't say anything. I'm like, but it's in code, they just can't enforce that. And so, yeah, it's mind-blowing how much people don't know that they need to know to be in here and make that happen.
I love it, man. Well, Justin, you and me are 2 of the guys that are screaming it from the rooftop, and I'm learning stuff from you every single day, man. I appreciate you coming on. This was super fun. I actually wish that we could rip for another hour or 2. I think we just need to circle back in a couple months and maybe we can talk about like some seasonal safety, guys. Winter's coming. There's gonna be snow, ice on the roads. What can you do? That might be a fun second episode, man. But any parting words? Anything you want to leave people with? Any way they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, my two most important things I say. Number one, complacency is devastating. And the other one that I say all the time, it's not a matter of if, but when. And I hear operators say it all the time. That's never happened yet. Oh, okay, yeah. It's just waiting till you sell your house before the house is going to catch on fire. It's not a matter of if, but when. I'm easy to get in touch with. Short-term rental safety. You can follow me through Breezeway, breezeway.io/Justin. I have the only safety course for short-term rentals in the world. It's in multiple languages. I have operators in Australia, India, Japan, and across the U.S., tens of thousands of people taking the safety course. You get discounts on your insurance when you do it. Everyone who does it should do it. But Instagram, Facebook, short-term rental safety, that's all I do 7 days a week is talk about safety and try and make it interesting.
I love it, man. Well, the episode was certainly interesting for me. I hope everybody listening in enjoyed it. Guys, probably worth a re-listen, to be honest with you. Probably worth circling back and really diving in. We really went through some of the key safety features. Obviously not all of them, but you can reach out to Justin, follow him on social media. Justin, I'll drop all your links, man. Thank you for tuning in, Justin. Thanks for coming on, and everybody, thanks for being the best part of the STR investing community. We'll catch you next Monday for another Monday Market Report.